All right, so this is probably the worst Nintendo fanboy I have come across. I mean, most of the Nintendo people don't even defend the Mario Kart world. I've seen a few, and I think they're mostly trolls. This guy, I actually think he's serious. He is actually defending this. Now, surprisingly, he doesn't defend the tech demo, which I'm surprised he doesn't even defend that tech demo, but I have yet to see someone outside Nintendo defend that piece of shit. So let's get into this.
Thing about the Nintendo Switch 2 is fair, except for that tech demo game. I cannot defend that. That is unacceptable. But $450 for the console or $500 for the launch bundle? I know millennials and Zoomers have become excessively entitled from being terminally online and just crying about everything all day, but really? Not understanding how money works now? Because adjusted for inflation, people were paying over $100 for Nintendo 64 games in the 90s. And objectively, the games are better now. It's actually incredible they've been around $60 for as long as they've been.
All right, first off, no, it is not a fair price. It is overpriced. They price literally an outdated console, which isn't even a console, it's a handheld. Yes, I understand that you know it's hard to compare it to a Sony PlayStation, but guess what? The PS5 is still a way better system. It is still has better hardware, it has better graphics. It is literally current gen. You can call this current gen. Now, I got no problem with it if it would have been set at the same price that Japan has theirs. But at first, I actually was like, okay, fine, $450. I can deal with the $450 price point. But then you get into the games, which you don't even know how to do proper research, because those games now aren't even worth over $100. Maybe some are. There are some select few like Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut. That game is out. There's reasons why that game is very sought after collectible. There was very few copies actually ever made. But you can sit there and go on about inflation, but N64 games, okay, I've said this before, the reason why that they were so damn expensive at the time was because manufacturing cost to make a game was ridiculously expensive. Over time, it got cheaper, and the market was smaller. They sold way more copies nowadays for the Switch games than they ever did for the N64 games. So now, my guy, you just don't even know what you're talking about. You're talking out your ass trying to defend this Nintendo bullshit. And also, I would hope the games nowadays are better. Those games are like over 2 decades old, so they should be better nowadays. Okay, if the gaming companies are making games that are worse now than they were over 20 years ago, then we're doomed.
We have features we couldn't even imagine back in the 90s, like seamless online connectivity or open world capabilities on the console, and the games are relatively cheaper now. And the Nintendo Switch 2 is finally a console that is competitive with other consoles. That the Nintendo Switch launched underpowered in 2017, and then people complained about the graphics and performance of the games. So now we have a console that can handle higher fidelity, larger games, and people are complaining.
Of course we have new features nowadays. Okay, that's what happens when technology gets better. It doesn't mean that you can sit there and rip off your fan base. And you're sitting there saying that it can compete with current gen. Are you kidding me? It is PS4 hardware. How can you sit there and say it competes with current gen? Now, if you're talking about the Steam Deck, and you're talking about whatever the Rogue Ally, I think is what it's called, sure, it can compete with that. But it can't compete with no PS5 or Xbox Series X or a PC, which honestly, I mean, the PC don't. Like, we can go on and on about the PC. The PC is always going to be better, I guess.
Mario Kart World is not possible on the Nintendo Switch or a slightly better console. That we need this price point to be able to do it. And honestly, when I saw the price of $450, I was astonished. I'm like, oh man, after watching the Nintendo Direct, the whole time I'm thinking, this thing's going to cost $500. Oh no. And the same thing applies to the games, that the power of the Nintendo Switch 2 means we get games that were impossible to have on the Nintendo Switch, so the price increase only makes sense and is only fair. That this is your Mario Kart experience. Also, people forgot about DLC. People are paying $90 for Pokemon with DLC or the DLC pack for Mario Kart 8, where now we just have more in one game for cheaper total.
No shit, you can't play this on the Switch. That's generally how it works. When they make a new console, they make better games. They generally can't play on the previous gen system. Jesus, you're a smart one. I swear, you're trying to defend this bullshit. It makes no damn sense. Okay, and then you're sitting there saying oh, well, Nintendo or people buying the Pokemon games are going to sit there and pay $90 for the expansions. It's because they add expansions, they add story, they add content to the game that actually makes it worth it. Well, maybe not always, but they do sit there and add that stuff. You don't think this $80 thing, they're not going to have DLC and expansions on top of it? So you're going to be paying upwards of $150 damn dollars?
Oh yeah, also Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, that had DLC. So like a 2017 game, even with inflation and then the DLC, that experience is $100. So yeah, inflation's gone up about 30%. So the game price is going up 30% with the new generation of consoles that are stronger and going to give us objectively better games. That's just fair. What is there to complain about? How is anyone boycotting Nintendo? And this is actually why I'm making the video, because I started seeing these videos in my YouTube. I'm like, wait, really? People are this upset? There's this many brats out there? And also, it kind of shows that the complaints, Nintendo should not listen to them at all. Don't worry, I'm too broke to buy anything. So these are just underperforming losers that are getting massive amounts of support from other underperforming losers just being entitled.
No, you're trying to sway people's decision to pay these enormous prices because your survival depends on Nintendo. Okay, you make money off of Nintendo, and you are not the same as most gamers, neither am I. Whenever we buy something for YouTube, like a game or a gaming console, we get to write that partly off on our taxes if you're here in America. If you know, I'm not going to speak on other countries. I'm assuming other countries do have similar tax things like that, maybe not completely the same, but we get to write off some of the stuff on our taxes, so we don't pay the exact price that the 99% of gamers averagely pay. Okay, so you're being disingenuous. You're going on like, oh, these are just a bunch of brokies. That's easy to say to you, for you when you're over almost 500,000 subscribers and you're making tons of money on YouTube, probably, where you can sit there, or other social media platforms, where you can sit there and fund this expensive habit. The average gamer is not going to be able to afford this. And you're going to be like, oh, well, since inflation's got, you can keep adding the inflation, saying, well, this is what you pay when you add inflation. That argument doesn't make no sense. No one cares what we paid in the past. All right. So for nowadays, you know, or we can look in the past if you want, if you want to keep going back to the past. Nintendo profited between $2 to $4 billion on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It didn't even cost nowhere near that amount to make. So don't sit there and act like, oh, well, we have to pay these prices because inflation's gone up and this is what it costs to make the games. They don't cost anywhere near the amount of money that they're making. So you're full of shit.
Brats. These are not consumers that you actually pay attention to, and I think Nintendo understands that. They confidently put out the price. They confidently did this. Welcome to the next generation. Nintendo did it first. It was going to happen with Sony. It was going to happen with Microsoft, but because of how the Nintendo Switch is, we need the Nintendo Switch 2 as soon as possible so we can start putting out like the really good, really competitive games. Easiest boycott ever. I can't even dish out that money anyways. So even if, let's say, the Nintendo Switch 2 was like $400 and the games were $60 or still $70, well, that means like after 1 or 2 games, they don't have the money, so they can't further support the product. So whatever they were going to be able to contribute is capped anyways, and it's just not worth it for the overall profit and also just the price margins of having the offerings where it is. Then we got a flashbang warning because there's another video I saw where it's like, wow.
And you do also understand, a lot of people do not pay for brand new games. Okay, to be able to buy brand new games at launch, that's a luxury. Most people are not going to be able to afford that. So a lot of people wait until they go down in price. I know that Nintendo don't sit there and lower their prices, but you can go to GameStop, you can go to pawn shops, and you can find them where they'll be like 10, 20, sometimes up to $30 off what Nintendo wants you to pay. And honestly, I know that, you know, this might be a flop. I don't think that the Switch 2 is going to be a flop, but it's possibility it could be a flop. As long as the hardware works, the games are good, it's probably going to be successful. Now, is it going to be as successful as the Switch 1? No, it's nowhere near. There's no way they're going to sell 150 million copies at this current price. They have to lower the price if they want to plan on. Is Mario Kart World going to sell as much as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe? Hell fucking no, that game is not going to sell nearly the amount of copies. Not at no $80 fucking dollars, it's not. And you could be like, oh, well, it was going to go up and Microsoft and Sony was going to do it. Sony, yes, probably. Microsoft, I doubt that. If Microsoft was to do that, they would probably sit there and still give it to you for free on Game Pass on day one, like they always do. And then they might make Sony sit there and pay the $80. That I could see. But most likely, no, Microsoft was not going to do that. Because Microsoft is still selling their AAA games. Some of them, like Expedition 33, is being sold at at $50. Which is probably a better game than Mario Kart World is, if we're being honest.
700,000 views and like a 10% like ratio. The capture of brats has actually been insane and one of my biggest struggles with being a content creator, because I'm not going to pander to entitlement and these losers just crying about everything and also just refusing to accept reality. That people are trying to call this like, oh, it's the next Wii, it's going to be a Wii U situation all over again. We have a great console and then Nintendo destroys it because it's a cycle. That's not how it works. You just don't go good, bad, good, bad, good, bad forever. There's nothing to base it off of right there. Here, we have a jump in quality with absolute banger games and fair price distribution. So Bravely Default being $40 for the Nintendo Switch 2 remaster. The Street Fighter V edition. That's not an $80 game for last generation. It's like, hey, we have all this new stuff and it's going to be at the $60 price point. But then like the big new games are $80. And even then we have like the Donkey Kong game. So not everything is just going to be like, oh, it's on Nintendo Switch 2, so it's automatically $80. Actually, no, it's going to be the upgraded experience. So yeah, here we have kind of what I was talking about with the DLC of Legend of Zelda effectively being worth $100 now. Well, if we have the upgraded edition to the Nintendo Switch 2 release of the previous gen console.
You know, I don't know if Bravely Default is fairly priced. I never played the game. Now that Street Fighter 6 for $60, if that includes both fighter passes, yeah, that's actually a really good deal. I'll give Capcom that one. That's a very good deal. But if that's just the standard edition without the fighter pass, no. How old that game is. And then you look at you said they say fairly priced. You're so full of shit. You don't even know what fairly priced is, dude. You are just so used to paying and dealing with Nintendo. You're just like, I don't care. They could raise these prices up to $150 and you will pay them. Look at Breath of the Wild. Okay, it is literally over 10 years old. This is the third time it's being reported to a new system, and they're selling for $69.99, but without the DLC. People don't realize that. So if you want the DLC to get the full experience, you're gonna pay $90 freaking dollars for a game that's been reported 3 damn times and is over 10 years old. Make that make sense. Now, that's it for my reaction. I'm not going to sit there and continue on because this guy's just driving me crazy, and I have better stuff to do with my time. But I will link his channel down below. You can go check him out. Do not send no hate, but he is definitely misinformed. Do not look at this guy. He's just being a corporate shield because he needs Nintendo to succeed. Okay, if Nintendo don't succeed, he's screwed because that's his whole identity is Nintendo. But that's it for my reaction. Please give it a like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay vigilant.